Sure. Sean, first of all, obviously the reports today that a takeover of the football club is close. What do you know? What do you know about what is happening at the moment?
Really, I know what you know. I've been reading different stories. It's not really my domain. I focus on the team, and obviously it needs focus at the minute. We've had a tough start, a couple of good performances, but a tough start nonetheless. I focus on that. The chairman and the board will make the big decisions of the club. I have no power over that side of things.
Even at this stage then, as manager, do you not speak to prospective new owners?
No, not in this case. I don't know whether that's standard or not. But no, I don't know of any ownership. So, as far as I know, they're all stories in the papers, but they seem to be growing and sort of, getting more detailed as the last couple of weeks have gone on.
But for someone who knows the in and outs of what goes on at the football club, what do you feel it needs from new owners coming in?
Well, I don't really know the ins and outs of that kind of thing. That's down to the ownership of the shareholders, the board members, the chairman, especially, obviously. And so I don't know the ins and outs of that side of things. The idea of no ownership is what will be. I don't know. I've been through it at Watford. It was a different model, obviously. So, my position changed. I don't know whether that will. I don't know what the new owners would want out of it because it's all paper stories at the minute. So unless that becomes a reality, my focus remains on the team and the team solely.
Obviously, I'll have to phrase it a different way. What would you want yourself as manager from new owners?
Well, it's hypothetical. So, until you know who's involved and you know what the realities are, because the reason why I say that is because all different ownerships on a piece of paper offer different things. It's the reality. When you meet, having been through it, when you meet these people, if it's true, by the way, then you find out what they're about, what their goals are, what they wish for, what they want for the club, and then you can maybe offer an opinion on what you think's correct. I've been through it once, and it changed the model of the whole club. I don't know whether that'll happen again. That's for possible buyers to decide. But until there's some fact to it, then I'll hold my opinion on that.
As you say, though, it's been a tough start to the season, but looking further back than that and beyond that, how healthy a position do you feel you've put the football club in, Sean, with the job that you've done?
Well, I think overall it's not just the job I've done. I think there's so many parts involved, particularly my staff and the players, because without them nothing turns. The people who work in this club, they care for the club, so there's a joint aspect to what's been achieved here. I don't think it's down to any individual. I think it's a collective view of where we were. And then when different successes came, both the kudos of actual success or the finance, which of course have been very, very important, then a lot of growth has come from the club, both on and off the pitch. And I always say it's in very good shape. Obviously on the pitch is not going to plan at the second, but generally the whole feel of the club and the way the club operates has certainly moved on a long, long way from the day that I walked in.
Again, as you say, that things not going to plan on the pitch at the moment. What do you put that down to?
Well, I think the early part was quite obvious, the challenge of injuries and more than we'd ever had, or carrying on actually. So not more than we've ever had. From the lockdown, coming out of lockdown, we had similar situation, which we were obviously disappointed with and surprised at. Performances were okay, but not good enough. And then the last two, I think we performed very well, actually. And I think we deserved probably, arguably anyway, all three at West Brom. You don't always get it. And I thought we certainly deserved something against a good Tottenham side. So that's looking a lot better performance-wise. Of course, you've got to turn performances into points. But I've always been a believer, I've always spoken openly with the players about performances over a season pay you back. The consistency now, the belief in the performances, because you still want that win, of course. That does build confidence when you're winning games, or it certainly adds to confidence. But no, there's a lot of things they're still doing well, but we've got to find the margins that we're often good at to make sure we get points on the board and wins on the board.
This season then, Sean, what is your expectation of where you should be at? Because we've seen you obviously fighting towards top half of the table. At times we've spoken about you challenging for Europe. So where would you put your expectations at the minute as to where you can take Burnley again?
I think I've said many times that the restart button's hit every year. We've seen this year a different kind of restart with very minimal very minimal expenditure, So it's been a different kind of restart and injuries, of course. then you're going into the season thinking, okay, well, it's probably not going to be a walk in the park. But to be honest, no season has been since we've been in the Premier League, nor the Championship for that matter. So I think there's just a reality to it. Our first marker since we've been in the Premier League has always been 40 points at the beginning. And then we've been very open-minded after that. And I think that's been shown through the seasons we've had in the Premier League. And I think, I only speak I speak openly and honestly about it because I think there's a lot of teams that are like that. If they're really honest, there's a clutch of teams on any given season, could be 6, 8, 10 teams, are all thinking very much the same, I would imagine. First thing is, it's not a definite, but you get around that 40-point mark, you're normally in the division. And once you get there, if you can get there quickly, which we've done a couple of times, then you open your mind and you say, right, let's take on the game schedule and see what comes. And we've done very well with that thinking.
How are you looking at in terms of injuries again? Just thinking Phil Bardsley, Eric Peters, will they be available this weekend?
No, Bardo's still got
Ben and Jack are still a bit further off, aren't they?
Yeah, Bardo's still got to recover from the COVID situation. Only for testing, he's recovered, but the testing's got to be cleared. Johan's got a niggly calf, so he's touch and go. Eric Peters won't make it. Ben had a run out in the week, which was good. We're trying to get him another game ASAP. He's training with us all the time now with the first team, so that's good news, and he's getting there. He's been out a while now, so ideally we need more game time for him, but he's certainly sharpening up in training. And then Cork is a bit behind them and making steady progress. So, even with the bodies recovering and getting back towards us, we have lost a couple in the meantime, which is not ideal.
And how do you assess then what you're facing with Chelsea? 1 week we see them sticking forward past Palace. The next week, obviously, they're getting pegged back to a 3-3 with Southampton.
Well, it's all part of the learning curve for Frank, I'm sure. Had a really strong first season. Spent a lot of money, but he'll know, the different teams he's worked in and managed, that moulding period to get all them players to align and pick your best team and the ones who work together on the pitch and the ones who find a blend that works and is successful. They're all the challenges that come of any coach or manager in the Premier League. He'll be looking to do that individually. I think we all know they've got some very, very high level individuals and trying to find the mix that works for him on a regular basis. Every manager's trying to do that. He's having a couple of ups and downs with finding that. But I can assure you, our focus will be on us. It was against Tottenham. I thought we delivered a very strong performance against Tottenham. A lot of the detail in the performance was right. One soft moment cost us, which that's sometimes the Premier League. And I think we've got to go and do that again and do it, add more to it, basically, because, we need results. And the only way of doing that is from taking care of ourselves and delivering an even better performance, if we can do that. And
it was those signs you were seeing against Spurs, more of a Burnley performance.
Well, I thought against West Brom as well. I thought it was a strong performance against West Brom away from home and against a good Tottenham side. Tottenham side equally have been free-flowing for a lot of this season so far and scoring freely and really opening teams up. I didn't think they did that. I thought we kept a really good shape and we made it very difficult. But equally, I thought we were a threat. I think we outchanced them on the day, which we don't always do against them sort of sides. And I think the general feel of the performance was one with intent, a desire to go and change things around and win a game. We've got to continue doing that, not just at the performance level, but certainly with that desire and that work ethic to make sure that we look after ourselves.
Thanks, Sean.
Cheers.
Thank you, Vinny. Simon, PLP, good afternoon.
Hi, Sean. Good to see you. I know you touched on it there, but in terms of Monday night's game, you obviously restricted a very good Spurs side to just a few chances. I guess you'll be thinking if you can do the same again on Saturday, that you'll give yourselves a pretty good chance.
Well, the theory is if you do that against any side in the Premier League, you increase the chances. It's fair to say some have kind of more individual moments where they can turn games, and Chelsea have that ability, as do Tottenham and a few others. But I think the collective attitude towards the defending side of thing against Tottenham was very good. I thought the main thing for me was the balance, because I thought we attacked very well as well, and I think that's going to be important, because you can kind of get locked into that defensive mode, and I didn't think we did against Tottenham, and I think that was really pleasing for me. We've got to make sure that we find that balance between the right shape to defend and safeguard our goal against good individuals and good sides like Chelsea, but equally try and work for the opportunities to go and hurt them when we can, and I think finding that balance is really important.
Obviously, tricky start to the season, as you mentioned before, but I guess if you look back to 2018, it was a slightly similar story, but then you went almost unbeaten throughout December, January and February. So is it about looking back at those experiences, taking heed from them and using that as sort of extra experience going forward?
I think the experience of them times helps. I don't think it guarantees anything, but it gives the players an understanding of when they do find the right levels and the collective performance, then we can win games, and it just reaffirms that. Last season equally reaffirmed that when we had a real stretch to the system with players being injured. We haven't fared quite as well in this early part with them injuries as regards results. But as I just suggested, the last two performances have certainly been very good performances, I felt, and strong performances. So I think there's an awareness of the past, but we don't rely on the past because it certainly doesn't guarantee the future. What it does do is give you a bit more of an experience level when things are not quite going well. And you have that to bounce back on and to sort of take the points that we used then. We've already spoke to the players about that and about how we take it forward.
8 years at the club for you now. I know you're not one to look back, but when you do, what are your proudest achievements, or some of them?
I think when I came here, I only guaranteed two things when I first got the job, and that was sweat on the shirt and a one club mentality. So I'd take them two. Because it sounds easy, by the way, but, to get a collective mentality through a whole club, I'm not just on about the players, I'm on about the work ethic of a whole group of people and the feel of a club. That's what I was hoping to build. And then, that's something that I'm really pleased of, to be honest. And the one club mentality, I meant it sincerely. When I got here, I just felt there was a bit of a disconnect with the fans and the team, and they'd come out of the Premier League a couple of years earlier. They were struggling a bit in the league. It just felt a bit odd. And I had my fair share of that, the question marks. And I just felt if we could get things right collectively, it's a town that needs that. Not, some clubs are a bit different. Some clubs are a little bit more corporate-minded, and big clubs, of course, with lots of different connections. This one is just a really simple connection. The fans back in the club and the club playing their part in with the fans and the community. And I think we've built on them levels in many different ways, not just the fact that we've been relatively successful on the pitch, not the fans just coming into the stadium, but the awareness of the community here and the community department and all the good work they've done. So I think them two things outside the obvious being some amazing times with promotions and fighting to stay in the Premier League and Europe. I mean, they're the more obvious things, of course, and thoroughly enjoyable. But I think the underbelly of it is what I thought that we could instill or add to at this club, and I think we've achieved that and hopefully continue to do so.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Dan, do you want me to relax? Side down.
Hello.
Dan, look at this guy. Particularly large forehead today. Do you remember the Tefal adverts? Looked like the Tefal
one. I've been called that
Tefal.
before.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry to be so unoriginal. Move on.
I'm just used to it. No, I'm saying it's very observant of you. Thank you. I've got a better backdrop after you complained last time that it was a bit too blue
yeah.
and the white.
Oh, Radio Lanc Sport. I like it. Home of live Lancashire sport. I like it. Was that just I think I just threw that out there as if I was reading it. As if by magic.
We'll cut that out.
As if by magic.
We'll use that. That can be a promo for the programme.
You scratch my back and I'll comb yours.
Well, you need a big comb.
Anyway,
we talked about your anniversary last week in reasonable amounts of detail. I'm just interested, particularly with all these takeover stories going round, how different is the club from when you first came in the door in terms of the people doing things around the place? How many faces do you still recognise? How many people are still around from when you still came in? And how much does the club kind of retain the same feel that it had then?
I think the growth has been extraordinary, with I mean, when you think the old training ground building that we used to use and the media would come down on a Thursday, there'd be like usually 2 or 3 people there. So there's a massive shift on that side of things, partly because of the club and because obviously the Premier League, a lot more media, and media's grown, of course, in them, in that 8 years. The size of the training ground, therefore, the more jobs in the training ground, the more different roles that are needed. The offices at the club, completely refurbished and done out, so more roles there. The community department, huge shift. I think when I got here as one person in the community department, I think they were up to 100. I'm not sure whether it's still there. Obviously a lot going on with COVID, but you understand the train of thought. So a massively different club than when I walked in, but I say it all the time with good measure. It's not just for me. There's loads of people played their part on and off the pitch. If the pitch is right, usually clubs have a chance to grow. We all know that. So, of course, that's mine, my staff's and the players' domain. But behind that, so much good work done by many staff members at this club, going all the way through it. And I think there's a real kind of badge of honour to have everyone at the club pull in the right direction.
And if you're not sure, Sean, what's going on with the takeover situation and just seeing what's being reported in the news, is there going to be uncertainty around the place for everybody that works there until it's resolved one way or the other?
Well, if the rumours are true, I suppose it helps if something is put in concrete, set in stone, whichever way you want to put it. I haven't heard anything about them being true, so therefore they are just rumours, they are stories. I'm waiting to see, of course. The idea of uncertainty, certainly my job and the team's job are focusing on performances. I think we've done that, particularly the last 2 games. I think we've really got that performance level that we're looking for. We've got to add to it, of course, because 1 point out of 2, and we had a chance to possibly take 2 wins, I felt. So we've got to add to the performances to make sure we do get the points. But on the other hand, there's got to be a reality to it, and the balance of that and how the team are performing against some of the challenges. So we've got to look at that as well. But that's my focus. The idea of ownerships, that's for the chairman, that's for the board. That's not decisions that I'll be making, that's for sure. See you later, Dan. Good. I could only look at that Tifa lad so many times. It's beginning to put me off my lunch. It's a fair one, yeah. Well, we've only just upgraded our... Oh, no, we haven't.
Sorry to pick up the takeover again, but some fans have sort of expressed concerns about the future of the club and what might or might not happen, given what's happened elsewhere when clubs have been taken over. Do you sort of share their concerns a little bit, or are you concerned?
You can only be concerned about something that's factually true. That's the only concern I can have. I can't be concerned about rumours, because since I've been here these 8 years, there's been plenty of rumours, I can assure you. So the first things first is to find out if things are factually true. I would suggest that this time they're in the papers. That doesn't always make them factually true, in my experience. So before I know all of that, then of course I can give an informed opinion.
Do you understand why the fans might be a little bit reticent, as maybe the grass isn't always greener when these things are taking place?
I can understand reading the papers and kind of fathoming out or trying to fathom out what's going on. I can certainly understand that. But as I said, without any fact to it, then I think the fans that I know reasonably well, not all of them, of course, but the feel of the fans, I'm sure they're only looking for whatever happens to, safeguard the club. The chairman and the board are in control of that. I certainly don't have any opinion on that or get involved in that, whether it's real or not, whether it's true or not. At the moment, it's paper stories. Simple as that.
You said then you'd not had any sort of conversations with the board or anybody higher up about it. Is that something you'd sort of welcome, a little heads up on these sorts of things, or are you just happy to be left to, as you say, focus on the pitch?
My focus definitely remains on the players. It definitely remains on the staff. We're long in the tooth in the sense that we know that makes a club operate well anyway. Not always, but generally, if the stuff on the pitch is going well, that helps the club to operate. That's always been my major concern. Of course, we've done many other things, and I've had my fair share of opinion on many other things around the club. But it's fair to say that they've all been factual situations. So the facts at the moment are we've had a tough start to the season. My job, the staff's job and the players' job is to correct that, and that's what we're working hard to do.
And just lastly, just on Chelsea, how do you sort of see them from the outside looking in? It strikes perhaps a little bit that Frank Lampard hasn't quite found that balance between attack and defence. He's put 3 and 4 past clubs and then seems to have shut them out at the other end with a couple of 0-0s and not managed to score. How do you sort of view their start of the season? Well,
he's been around the game long enough to know that them 2 ends are important, including we've been looking at it as well. I've said it for many years here. We can all talk about the styles and the brands and the in-betweens and the middle of the pitch, but at the end of the day, you've got to get both boxes right. We're still trying to correct that. We're getting closer. I'm sure he'll be looking to find that balance as well. They've got a very good side and a very good group of players. They've invested in huge levels at this, especially at this time with the COVID situation. But we all know the realities. We've all seen it from afar. If you're not in football but you're a fan, as managers and coaches, you build teams usually. Sometimes players, no matter how much you spend for them, a lot of money or little money, they fit hand in glove. They just work. Other times it takes time. So Frank's maybe going through a period when he's just finding out who the runners and riders are to make his team more consistent. But for sure, we respect them as being a very, very good group of players, and we've got to make sure that we're on our performance levels to look after ourselves.
Just on the game, does it help you at all that Chelsea have had a European game in midweek and you guys haven't played since Monday? Or with the squads that these top teams assemble, does it not really make a lot of difference?
I think the journey times and travelling and et cetera, possibly, but as you rightly said, they can make changes. There's a number they could make and not It's more shifting styles and different types of quality. I don't think they necessarily dilute. I think they've got very good players in and around their group who they can use just in different ways. So, yeah, I don't think we're certainly not using that as some kind of angle to make sure that means we win. We're not that naive. It might be helpful. You don't know until the whistle blows, and then if they're feeling maybe some of the effects, that would be helpful. If they're not, then we've got to still deliver a really strong performance, because the top sides are very strong. We know that. We delivered a good performance the other day against Tottenham. Apart from the result, of course, I really enjoyed the performance, actually. I enthused about it with the players because I thought it was correct and I thought it was the appropriate way of performing to win a game. We've got to turn that into a win, literally, but I think that's the right way of going about it.
Just in terms of your own squad, has it been beneficial to, I think you played Monday and now you're playing Saturday, with all the injuries you've had? You mentioned Ben Mee being able to get some time in a training game. Has that been really helpful to you, not having to play every sort of 3 or 4 days like you were at the start of the season? Yeah,
I think we were super stretched at the beginning of the season, and with all due respect to the cup competitions, it always comes around the talk of cup competitions, but our focus has to be on the Premier League, especially when we're so stretched. It was a difficult period. Now we are getting players back fit. There's a more competitive element of the side in training. There's a more competitive element in the sense of the performances, I feel, the last 2 performances particularly. The window's shut as well. We've still got players to get back fit. So, a number of things probably help us in the sense of finding clarity to taking on the challenge of what's in front of us. But it's still tough. The Premier League's a tough division. We're not naive enough to think it's not. We are beginning to get, I feel, some way back to what we should be in order to get results.
That'll do for me. I'm off to weep silently about my own forehead.
I think you'll be all right. I've got a feeling you're going to be fine. I don't think you'll have any trouble with that at all. Although you should consider combing that hair forward and maybe even just having it cut and washing it even, possibly, through a lens.
Even when there's no pandemic.
It looks like you don't. With that outfit on, you look like you live in a mirrorless house. Don't worry about that.
Thanks, Dan. Lastly, this section, James at Talk Sport. Sorry, James, keep your rating. That's okay. Hi, Sean.
Hiya.
Sean, only 3 goals from your opening 5 Premier League games, but do you see promising signs from the games against West Brom and Spurs that goals isn't going to be a problem this season?
Hardest job in the game, I think, scoring goals. So I never overthink my strikers or anyone else on the pitch for that matter. I think we've created some good quality chances. I think another day we've scored more goals, but it's tough in the Premier League, to score goals and score lots of them. We have to make all of the chances count when we can. I think the chance count has been okay. I think can still improve, but I think it's been okay, particularly against Tottenham and West Brom. And I've always said it's not, the Premier League's slightly different. The stats are maybe slightly more skewed. The idea of getting enough shots on target and enough shots in a game. The Premier League's the quality, it's getting the quality of chance. We've had games where on analysis you might have lost to a side and everyone said, they were excellent and blah, blah, blah. And afterwards you've actually gone, they had 3 efforts at goal and scored all 3, for example. That's maybe the clinical edge of the Premier League. We found ways of achieving that, of course, and we've got to continue to do that and improve on that this season. But it is a hard task. The other side of it is finding the balance that and defending well. I think the last 2 games we've defended very well, actually. So I think finding that balance. But if we keep doing what we're doing the last 2 games, I think we'll look after ourselves with results. There's no guarantee, though, so we have to be ready to at least perform to that level, if not beyond that.
Really positive news with Ben Mee playing 70 minutes in the on the training ground in recent days. How close is he to making a first-team return? And when you look at him and Jack Cork, just how much have you missed them so far this season, both on the pitch and off the pitch as well, in those key leadership roles? Yeah,
both very good players, very consistent players, add a belief and an energy to the performances like other players do. Ben's become, such a good, not just a good captain, but a good player, a good person all round, actually. And he's matured in front of all of us, right in front of our eyes and on a yearly basis with how he is and now about his performances. The first long spell he's had out since I've been here, so that's been a challenge for him and for us. So we'll welcome him back when he's fit. And Corky, very similar but different. Came a bit later than Ben. Obviously, Ben's been here a while, but moulded into the team very quickly. Formed good relationships on and off the pitch here. So we look forward to having him fit as well. Alongside that, I must say, I think, Dale's come in and doing nicely, getting used to it. But, and I think Westy and Brownie have done very well. So if we can get Corky fit as well, it's just another really strong player for us. And Ben, of course, too. And, they're, like I say, they're very strong players. They've done very well for us. So they are important. All of these players are important.
And just finally from me, Sean, we know we've already spoken about the developing reports regarding a takeover, and we're not sure how much substance are in those at the moment. But in terms of any outside investment, how much do Burnley need that outside investment to try and go on to the next level, if that's possible?
It's just investment is a tricky thing. Clubs have different models, different ways of working. We've had one for a long time here. It's always been, I've said over the last few weeks that it kind of, makes a story out of something that I've been saying for years here. Our parameters and guidelines of work to are very stringent. They are very hard. They're very tight at times, and when the market doesn't care for that. But that's the way that the chairman and the board want to run the club. I've worked, and I continue to work hard with whatever guidelines I'm given, and I continue to do that now. If that changes, whether it's this current chairman and board or a future one, we'll see. But until there's some fact to it, then it's just all conjecture and all hypothetical.